Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Doug Grant, one of the partners at Insurance-Canada.ca. Welcome to another in our Technology in Action series of webinars. In conjunction with the Insurance Brokers Association of Canada, IBAC, it is our pleasure to be bringing you this webinar, a data exchange DX update, automating broker-insurer transactions to improve customer experience. Almost as long as I can remember, and that does go back a while, the insurer-broker partnership has been looking for ways to better exchange data and process transactions. This has continued to unfold in an insurance world where we simultaneously face a growing number of products, greater complexity, consumer demands for a better customer experience, and the list goes on. There have been numerous projects and innovations in this connectivity space, some big, some small, some of which have brought ongoing advantage, others which in the end didn't quite pass muster. Today's webinar addresses a grassroots approach which germinated and took root in the broker community. It has morphed over time into a well-designed approach which has progressed through several steps, and that progress continues. The objective here today is to provide an update, a quick review of the objectives and approach, the current status, and what lies ahead for the DX project. Before we begin, a few administrative details. As you are listening, should you have any questions you would like to address to our speakers, please enter them into the questions box on the control panel. Following the presentations, I will present those questions you have asked to one of the presenters. I may even throw in a comment or two myself. We are recording the webinar, and we will send a note out to you and to those who are unable to attend with a link to the recording in the next couple of days. And on that note, I'd like to introduce our speakers for today. Kim Opheim, leader of Broker Technology and Innovation for IBAC. Gina McFetridge, President, Archway Insurance, and Chair of the IBAC Technology Committee. Michael Luders, Senior Vice President, Commercial Insurance and Risk Management at ProLink Insurance. And Grahame Haigh, Vice President, Broker Distribution, Wawanesa Mutual Insurance. And finally, Peter Braid, who's the CEO of IBAC. Each of these people has played and currently plays a role in the project. Now, to have a quick look at what we're going to walk through today, here's a look at the agenda. Peter's going to give an importance of the technology pillar to IBAC, and followed by Kim, who's the project manager, who will review the overall initiative. Gina, as current chair of the IBAC Technology Committee, will address the first of the three current projects, which is claims inquiry. Michael Luders, who's the past chair of the IBAC Technology Committee, will have a look at loss runs, and Grahame Haigh, representing the insurer side at the third billing inquiry. We will then wrap up with a period of question and answers. On that note then, and without any further ado, Peter, take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Doug. Thank you for hosting us today, to you and to Insurance Canada. And many thanks to all of those who are attending. I want to begin just by setting the context, if you will, and telling you a little bit about IBAC and a little bit about our IBAC Technology Committee. First of all, of course, the Insurance Brokers Association of Canada is the national association representing the approximately 38,000 P&C insurance brokers across the land through our 11 member associations, one per province, plus the Toronto Insurance Council. IBAC has four pillars of our overall mandate, and they are federal advocacy, our national advertising program, professional development, and last but certainly not least, technology. And I think it's fair to say that our technology pillar has certainly risen in prominence in the last couple of years. To drive our technology agenda at IBAC, we have a national IBAC Technology Committee comprised of representatives from each of our member associations across the country. This is a group of people who believe very strongly that insurance consumers are best served by the distribution of insurance through the broker channel, and that in order to maintain our competitive advantage, we need to be continuously investing in technology and improving our technology offerings. And of course, we've got two great representatives of our IBAC Technology Committee with us today, Gina and Michael. The IBAC Tech Committee has three main goals. First, to serve as a unified broker voice when we speak to our insurance carrier and BMS vendor partners. Second, to promote the adoption of technology and new technology solutions. And finally, three, to advance and increase broker-insurer connectivity. As we all know, the insurance industry is facing an urgent call to enhance technology to meet changing consumer demands and to reduce costs. And obviously, the current pandemic situation has only further heightened this call. And while clearly one of the priorities is to enhance our digital interface with consumers, this can't be done without the strong foundation of improved data exchange between insurers and brokers. The Data Exchange Initiative is an industry initiative to improve the flow of data between brokers, BMS vendors, and insurance carriers on a real-time basis. IBAC believes that brokers must work together with our industry partners toward the common goal of integrating new technology solutions. And we're using the convening power of IBAC as a national association to bring together insurers and BMS vendors to develop standards-based reusable data services. And this is a collaborative model that encourages the sharing of non-proprietary IP. The first reusable data service was completed last September 2019, and there are more currently in the pipeline. It's also important to really highlight that the success of the Data Exchange Initiative relies on the active participation and cooperation of vendors and insurers in the industry. And of course, one of our panelists today is Haigh from Wawanesa, and Wawanesa serves as a great example of this. Finally, we want to continue this cooperation in the technology space, build on this momentum, and our panelists today will tell you more about our overall approach in this regard. So with that, I would like to now pass things over to Kim, who is our lead on broker technology and innovation. Kim.
Thanks, Peter. So why DX? At its most fundamental level, DX or data exchange is about the customer experience when purchasing insurance through the broker distribution channel. Whether it's purchasing a policy, requesting a policy change, or most importantly, at claim time, customers deserve a frictionless, real-time experience. As consumers ourselves, we all like a seamless and well-thought-out business experience, and we are treated to them on a daily basis by online retailers who get it. But the ones we remember are the ones that didn't go smoothly. A bad customer experience brought on by antiquated technology, or worse yet, no technology, detracts from and harms the broker channel. For too long, we've seen insurers view the movement of data as a proprietary strategic tool to be used competitively within the broker distribution channel. The problem with this is it leads to a disjointed customer experience that is actually detrimental to the channel, both in increased cost and customer experience. Insureds don't understand, for instance, why one policy change goes smoothly and another, with a different insurer, takes 3 and 4 attempts before it's finally issued correctly. This is both operationally and reputationally expensive for all involved, but it's the broker on the front lines that bears the brunt. We absolutely invite competition in the channel, but stop competing on the movement of data. Limited resources are often cited as a reason why there is slow movement on data projects within the channel. DX and the proven concept of utilizing reusable data services and sharing this know-how within the vendor-insurer ecosystem alleviates this problem. In 2018, IBAC, working with the vendors, hammered out an agreement to share non-proprietary know-how. There's a long list of transactions that are fundamental to conducting the business of insurance that are non-proprietary. Inquiry transactions, for instance, like billing, claims, and policy. First notice of loss, policy change, to name only a few. We expect vendors to live up to the promise of sharing know-how to accelerate development. Insurers also need to get on board in recognizing that basic transactions are not proprietary, and there is room to work together to reduce cost and improve the customer experience within the broker distribution channel. Another challenge DX can help solve is critical mass. What we mean by that is having one insurer with a great automated real-time transaction actually adds to broker workload. To be efficient, brokers require a common workflow for each insurance transaction. Again, take policy change, for example. It doesn't help when there are multiple workflows with different insurers for the same transaction. The learning curve for the broker can be quite daunting. DX helps with this through the sharing of know-how. The wheel doesn't need to be reinvented for every transaction. Design and build it once, share it, and then replicate. This will allow vendors and insurers to develop faster so that we can get to the standardized workflow and achieve critical mass as fast as possible. I am happy to report that we are making progress, and I'd like to touch on the following areas. So as Peter alluded to, the IBAC Technology Committee has convened working groups that have created and vetted use cases for the following transactions, which will be described in greater detail by our other participants. And those are claims inquiry, loss runs, billing inquiry. Next steps are to bring vendor carrier partners into the working groups to build operational solutions to support each use case. IBAC, acting as a matchmaker, if you will, matches up insurers who have an interest in developing a specific transaction with a vendor. These vendor-insurer partnerships will build the transaction, create the reusable data service, and then that will be shared with other vendors and insurers. So where we are right now, it's a mixed review. Claims inquiry right now is a paused project. The insurance company that was involved has paused it, stating COVID as the reason for doing such. Loss runs. Aviva and Applied Systems have partnered together to deliver loss runs, which will be discussed in greater detail. And then billing inquiry. We have Wawanesa leading the charge with CSSI and Keel Vertifor as the vendor partners working on that project. IBAC worked with CSSI, another vendor, to create the reusable data services template for first notice of loss, and that will be a foundational document for all future DX projects. Wawanesa has completed their draft covering the insurer side of the first notice of loss reusable data service, making them the first insurer to complete this step, and we certainly congratulate them and commend their efforts. Now, we've talked a lot about the reusable data services. We need a place to house those documents or that know-how. So CSIO, who's a great partner, has agreed to host the reusable data services library. IBAC has worked with CSIO on a framework for things like access control and version control. CSIO, has also committed to providing resources to participate on the working groups. IBAC is also working closely with the CSIO Innotech Committee with 3 members representing the broker channel. The committee has identified 3 areas or projects, and those being billing and claims inquiry and the standardization of APIs. The billing and claims use cases created by the IBAC Technology Committee provided foundational information to inform those projects and to make sure that the broker viewpoint is understood and heard. For first notice of loss, Wawanesa and Keel Vertifor are on track to operationalize first notice of loss this year. So what's left to do? Frankly, there's a lot to do, and it's taken too long to get here. There's a famous quote attributed to Winston Churchill: "Never let a good crisis go to waste." COVID-19 is reshaping daily interactions and buying habits faster than anything that we have ever seen before. Microsoft's CEO recently commented that because of COVID, they did 2 years worth of digital transformation in 2 weeks. Now is the time to push ahead with the digitization of the broker distribution channel, not slow down. Operationalizing first notice of loss. The Toronto Insurance Council proof of concept kickoff happened in 2018. Northbridge, RSA, Travelers, and SGI showed great leadership, but here we are 2 years later and we have one insurer actively working on this. We asked the original four to once again show leadership and operationalize these transactions for the benefit of your broker partners. The same thing can be said about the reusable data services. 2 years later, we still only have the original first notice of loss reusable data service in the library. We need our vendors to step up and push forward and build a complete set of reusable data services covering the standard transactions that brokers use every day. Remember, no one vendor needs to do all the work. This is about collaboration and sharing non-proprietary know-how. Vendors and insurers go to the CSIO library, use the know-how that's been shared, and help us reach critical mass. Specifically, I'm asking the top 10 insurers that support the broker channel to prioritize DX initiatives on their roadmaps, prove that you truly do support the channel, and help us achieve critical mass on these common workflows. Let's get this done during the 2020-2021 cycle. I'd like to now invite Gina McFetridge, the chair of the IBAC Technology Committee and president of Archway Insurance, to discuss claims inquiry.
Thanks so much, Kim. I appreciate that. Claims inquiry, as Kim mentioned, is a current focus for the Technology Committee. Since we completed and added the first notice of loss reusable data service into the CSIO library, the logical next step is really to move on to claims inquiry. And when thinking about claims inquiry, it really, the idea of this service is that it would handle all information passing between the insurance company and the broker. And this would start once the claim was reported and opened, and be completed once the claim was successfully closed. So the types of communications would involve the insured or customers and clients, the broker, the insurance adjuster, vendors, auto repair shops by way of example, and also healthcare professionals. So many parties sharing information throughout the claims process. And it would help brokers quickly see what adjuster was assigned and the contact information for that adjuster. It would allow them to see physical damage reserves. It would allow them to quickly see within, again, all this available within their own broker management system, payments made to vendors or the insured, the claim status itself, as mentioned, if it's still open or if it's closed, any adjuster notes regarding the status or information holdups in stalls in the process, and ideally even a note section for the broker to add their own information in the BMS that then would be shared through this data exchange process with the insurance company's system. So today, the reality is quite different. Most brokers find themselves needing to call an adjuster or go to an insurance portal in order to get information on the status of a claim. This often happens following a frustrated call from a client that's confused about the process or wondering why things aren't moving ahead faster. And unfortunately, in many cases, the broker, unless they're proactive and making notes to themselves, has no way of knowing if there's been an update to the status of the claim and what's going on with the communication without having to call the adjuster or go into an insurance portal. I think it's fair to say that claims are where we, as brokers and insurance companies as well, make or break our service promise to our clients. And it's incredibly vital that this process is positive for the future retention of our clients and the reputation of our brokerage and the insurance companies that we represent. So with the claims inquiry, really the idea of sharing this information seamlessly between broker system and insurance company system would create incredible time efficiencies, both on the broker side and on the insurance company side, which would then in turn be passed along in more superior customer service to our clients. It also lessened the time needed by adjusters to bring brokers up to speed, and definitely lower the number of touch points required to complete the loss process. And as brokers as well, we'd also be able to, at a glance, supply our clients with status reports on the claim. So reducing the amount of data entry and allowing for overall better claims tracking. So that is the goal of our claims inquiry, and if it's piqued your interest, we hope it has, and are looking forward to post-COVID, or better still during COVID, someone deciding to get on board and start working on this reusable service. And with that, I will turn things over to Michael to talk about loss runs.
Thank you, Gina. So loss runs, this is probably a transaction that is done more by commercial brokers than personal insurance brokers. The reason why this was important is because, especially today, when we are, as brokers, doing a renewal, advising a client on risk management, or remarketing an account, having loss information from the current insurer is a critical piece of information. Insureds or our clients want to know what the status is of any claims that they've had, if they're still open, what the payouts have been, etc. When we're trying to advise our clients on risk management, the information that we get out of those reports is actually quite valuable. And again, from a remarketing perspective, it's quite often an insurer requirement that past claims be confirmed with a loss run report from the previous insurer. So this request that goes out to our insurer partners is a common request. For smaller brokers, you're probably making hundreds of these requests a year. And for some, especially in the Toronto Insurance Council, some of our larger national commercial brokers are making tens of thousands, and in some cases over 100,000 of these requests a year. And these are requests that generate no income. It's purely an administrative task, and currently a 100% manual process. And when we analyzed that manual process, the number of touch points that a simple request like a loss run will have between the broker and the insurance partner can run anywhere from 6 to 15 different touch points when you think about the request, the follow-ups, the attaching, and then the numerous follow-ups, etc., that can happen sometimes in between. It's a highly manual process that again generates no income for either party. But the data, of course, is incredibly important. The other challenge for brokers is that the way we receive the data from insurers is highly inconsistent. What data we get, inconsistent. What format we get the data, whether it comes in a spreadsheet, a Word document, a PDF document, again, inconsistent. And it makes it very difficult for brokers to work with that information or work with that data. A lot of the times the data is incomplete. So, and lastly, the business case, for loss runs was that today some brokers, larger commercial brokers, and certainly insurance carriers have dedicated resources on the payroll to do nothing but handle this request, which again just emphasizes how inefficient this current process is and how expensive it is and the cost that it adds to the process, and in our attempt to provide a good and positive customer experience. So very expensive. So what's the objective here? Well, the objective when we built the use case is for a broker to be able to select a policy in their broker management system, and through the broker management system, initiate a request to their insurance partner for that loss information, and that information to go directly out from the BMS, that request to be received by the insurer partner, the data to be pulled from their claims system, and have that data populated directly back into the broker management system. So essentially one request, full round trip, real time, and the broker getting the data in a quickly, in a full and reliable format, with complete data that allows us to do what it is that we need to do. Because again, the other process, the other part of the manual process, which can add numerous steps to this, and the brokers on the phone today will understand this, is that when the information does come in incomplete, or the information cannot be deciphered as to what it actually means, because it's usually, you know, proprietary codes and words for that particular insurer, is again, it initiates further requests for information from the broker to the underwriter to get further clarification on that claims history. So making that round trip in real time, you know, putting some standards and some commonality to that request and the type of information that's being requested will improve the customer experience greatly and reduce and eliminate a lot of cost from the current process. Where are we at on this particular initiative with our partners Aviva and Applied Systems? Currently, we are making progress. There, I guess, is a very small change that needs to happen to the data standard, the CSIO data standard on this, which I guess has been submitted. And once that item has been addressed, then we have a commitment from our partners to proceed with the making of a reusable data service that will go into the library, the CSIO library, which will then be available for all other BMS partners and insurance carriers to look at, use it, reuse the information that in the document that's already been published, and make that available and make it easy for others to replicate this particular request. So that's where we're at today. And with that, I will pass it on to Grahame.
Thank you very much, Michael. Good afternoon and morning, everyone. For those on the webinar who don't know me, my name is Grahame Haigh, and as I was introduced, I work for Wawanesa as head of broker distribution. I'd like to thank Peter and Kim of IBAC and Insurance Canada for putting this webinar together. I'd also like to acknowledge two brokers, Gina and Michael, for doing great work, both for their own companies, as well as being ambassadors for the broader broker community. It's a privilege to share a webinar with you. Thank you very much for the invite. I was thinking about how to prepare for this webinar. What should I say? Should I be worried about who I might offend, or do I just jump in the deep end and go for it? For the audience listening, you'll be either happy to know or maybe a bit nervous. I've decided to kind of jump in the deep end. It's time, and we need to acknowledge the frustrations many of us have with the current state of broker integration support in the industry. To begin, it's important that I start on behalf of Wawanesa by taking ownership and responsibility for part of where we are today. The reason connectivity is so poor is because insurers held on to their legacy platforms for way too long. It's only 5 years back that Wawanesa was still a blue screen mainframe shop, and we would have been the norm, not the exception. It's cost us a whole load of money, hundreds of millions of dollars, to get Wawanesa where we are today. On a modern platform, Guidewire, that now gives us the opportunity to complete the connections broker-focused insurers and brokers themselves have been dreaming of since computers were first put in broker offices. So you'd think our dance card for those wanting to integrate with us would be full. Well, it's not, and that needs to change. We're open for business. Some players in the market are stepping up. For those that have seen some of the press releases lately, Wawanesa has now integrated our billing APIs with Trufla. And we're moving ahead with other integrations with a variety of different partners. This is good. However, 70% of our transaction volume is with applied system software, with the rest split by Vertafore, TBW, and Acturus. A quick shout out to TBW for some of their integration work with us, as we are now quite effectively going back on the quote and buy component for personal lines. From what we can see, it's working well. What we need, though, is a concerted effort and the investment required to do the work from all the BMS vendors out there. By the end of this year, Wawanesa expects to have the majority of our transactions available to be consumed by partners as APIs. Including in that would be quote, buy, billing, F&OL, and others. And you've heard some of those. And our commitment would be to make those available through the shared data services piece and DX. We're going to make them available. Our expectation is that our vendor partners will invest their own resources to consume and release their integrations. As a quick aside, we quickly need to talk about the impact of third-party rating tools in the business. This is old technology and it's a duplication of effort, which adds costs to the distribution model. Throw in that as we try to duplicate insurance company rating, it's impossible to be 100% accurate with some of the algorithms that we're now creating. BMS vendors need to move away from third-party rating tools and towards integration with company rating systems. And the sooner the better. If rating applications were to take the resources they had currently working on duplicating insurer rating structures and move them over to API integration, I bet we'd make good headway. Here's my push on the audience directly listening in on this webinar, and to any others who care what a middle-aged, slightly pudgy insurance executive thinks. Now's the time to move this forward. It's been too long. Brokers are frustrated. I hear it regularly. And we have the tools now to do better. Let's fulfill what we've been promising for years. Better broker data integration. We can do it. Now's the time. Cam Lepke, Wawanesa's CIO, is the chair of the board of directors for the CSIO. We are committed to working with IBAC and the various broker associations to make a reusable data service like DX work. We'll have a couple of APIs available there over the next few months. Vendors, tie the laces on your work boots. Let's get some work done. So I should quickly get back to the slide deck too. We're just about ready to go with billing inquiry as an API in DX. Also, we're ready to go with F&OL. Documentation for all of this will soon be available. Automating just makes sense. Some of you might recall a soundbite I said in another webinar that paper is stupid. As an aside, I actually found somebody else bought that URL and created a website called paperisstupid.com following the webinar, which was kind of funny. While it was a soundbite, there's a lot of truth in it. We need to keep moving along our efforts to digitize documents. There are tons of tools out there to do so. DX actually takes us down that path too. And there's no reason that any insured wanting to transact with our industry electronically can't do so. The IBAO, from what I'm aware, is interested in working on this very subject. Wawanesa will be there to support and participate, if not help lead. Let's not use COVID-19 as an excuse to push off the work required to get broker integration moving at a faster pace. In fact, we'd be responding even better to the pandemic if we made more advances and earlier on initiatives like DX. Let's actually use COVID-19 as a reason to move along at a quicker pace, not slower. A suggestion, we need to pull things together. We have the CSIO, the IBAC DX, efforts by the IBAO, and a host of others that are involved peripherally too. There needs to be a single point of success or a single throat to choke. Brokers are the nexus. It makes sense they play a key role in what or who this is. Before I hand the podium over for the Q&A period, I'd like to close with my challenge. Excuses are over. Data integration is past the stage of possibility. It's now into the reality phase. Customer experience demands that we deliver on this as a partnership. It's time for insurers, brokers, and vendors to get this going and require from each other progress. Niceties are so last decade. Let's just get stuff done. If I'm invited back to talk in a year, hopefully I might be, and we're no further ahead though, my comments might be even a bit more pointed. However, I'm hoping and trusting I'll be able to talk instead about our successes. All the best, everyone. Stay safe and healthy, and be proud of how the industry as an essential service has responded to the challenges of the pandemic. I'll hand it back now for the broker Q&A.
Thank you very much, Graham. Appreciate that. You did make some very pointed remarks in there. And I have a question here, which I think comes specifically to you, someone who missed a possible comment that you might have made. And that was a very specific question about whether Applied is working with Wawanesa on API integration. I would assume that you're going to say, we want to work with everybody and we're willing to go anytime you're ready. But would you care to make a comment?
I'll make a comment, and I know that there's some Applied folks on the phone here as well too. So my comment on that will be a little bit of both. So certainly we're working with Applied as a vendor, and we're working with the other BMS vendors as well too. What I would suggest, and I'm going to comment in general and instead of detail. The general component is that everyone thinks it's a great idea to do this work and for this initiative to move forward. What happens though is that once it starts to look like harder work, or there's a reallocation of resources required to do the work, or there's money needing to be spent by other partners in this equation. Right now, the history of it has been is that the insurer pays for both sides of the transaction. It needs to be that vendors are stepping up and committing resources and money to doing the work at their end. So that would be my challenge, not just to Applied, but to all the other vendors where we're finding success. And I'll use Trufla as the example on the billing API side. They took our billing APIs, they took our documentation, and they worked with us to do their half of that equation and create the data exchange. And everything I'm hearing is it's working incredibly well. We are more than happy to do that work with whoever will come to the table with us. And our preference would be that Applied and the other large BMS vendors in Canada are the ones that we do that work with, because they are such a high volume of the transaction count for us.
Your remarks continue to be pointed, so very much appreciated. Let's get at it. We do have another question that almost follows in on that one, only it's with a different broker management system. So the point was, Keel is working with which carrier on first notice of loss? Now, as I recall, first notice of loss, there were 2 different broker management systems involved with that. And there were several insurance companies. Does anyone have an update on where that is at the moment? Tim, is that your space or?
Yeah, so first notice of loss, Keel is working with Wawanesa. And Wawanesa, again, as mentioned earlier, is the first carrier to contribute to the RDS, and we applaud that. We need every carrier to participate in that manner. But that's the partnership that we've put together as Keel and Wawanesa.
And maybe looking at that then with all the different players that you have at the moment, a couple of questions. One is, does IBAC need more technology vendors to participate? And who would someone reach out to in order to get going if they're not involved at the moment?
As Peter commented earlier in the session about the convening authority or power of IBAC, we certainly need, we're encouraging innovation, and we certainly need more technology vendors. There's different areas to participate. I think traditionally we've looked at it from a broker management system, but there's third-party vendors out there that find a niche and build products that brokers can use. So yes, I think the short answer is that we would love more to participate. At the bottom of the slide, we have a dedicated email for DX. It's dxinfo@ibac.ca. And if anybody has some specific questions, such as this one, please feel free to reach out to us through that email.
So a very similar question that came from Cal, where they've built their own in-house broker management system, all based on APIs and the artificial intelligence model. They could reach out to you to find out how they might be able to get involved and build some of these integrations. I guess almost the same sort of way that Wawanesa and Trufla tackled something.
Yes, certainly.
Okay, super. Graham, I think a little bit earlier on, you did mention in your comments the whole issue, I think I remember it was you, around real-time quoting and the current comparative rating systems, et cetera, et cetera. Where would this fit as a project, or do you think it might? Maybe this goes back to Kim and others as well. Where might that fit in a follow-on project to the three that have been mentioned so far today, or is that something that could be brought forward, or how do you see that unfolding?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually think the DX model would be an excellent way for us to deliver on that. It really is a quoting API that's required to take over from the duplication of the rates at the third-party rating software platform. So I would suggest, and it's about everything. Brokers don't like duplication of entry themselves. So to enter it into a BMS and then to enter it in a company portal is silly, and it takes a lot of money to do that at both sides. It takes time, effort, and energy for both sides to do it. The same occurs when we're having rating engines duplicate the work that we're doing as a company at our back office. So if we've done all the work at our end to create the rating models that we use to quote for our brokers and for customers, there's no point in having another party duplicate that effort, especially as complicated as it is today. I'd hate to think about how large some of the software shops need to be to do all this work, because Wawanesa is doing monthly rate changes on a variety of different products, and every other company that's working with brokers would be doing the same thing. So if you could think around how much effort is going into remanufacturing the rates that companies have created in their own platforms, it doesn't make a lot of sense to do that, and it's very expensive that somebody pays for in the end. So let's get away from doing that. The integration into company rating engines has to occur through the BMS front end, and that would be an excellent way for us to move this forward. And there's no reason that couldn't be one of the DX pieces. So I would suggest that's a great way to do it.
Super. Does anyone else have a comment on that, or can we go to the next question?
I'd like to, this is Michael. I'd like to comment on it for one moment. And I'll make a pointed comment on this similar to Graham, and that is that the one thing the property and casualty insurance industry in Canada has learned is that monopolies on things like rating don't serve us well. They only end up costing us more and more. The prices to access these things just continuously go up, but as brokers, we don't get a better product for it. And that's the problem with things that are proprietary and monopolistic. And that's why the data exchange model is so important, because it dismantles and removes those hurdles, and not only lowers the cost, but it also allows the industry to run at the speed of the fastest runner. And so what ends up happening is the cost structure for everybody goes down, and the quality of the product that you get goes up. So using reusable services right out of the BMS system to access rating is just an ideal example of what we need to be doing, and the reason why we need to be doing it.
Yeah, and
go ahead,
I can comment a little bit further too. Graham touched on it, the complexity of rating algorithms. It's getting to the point where it's virtually impossible for a technology company to replicate those algorithms, and sometimes that's the secret sauce. So there may be issues sharing that. If we want to get to the place where brokers can provide guaranteed quotes, access to the carrier rating engine is the only way that can be accomplished through an API. So I think as technology evolves, as the standards that CSIO is working on for APIs, as that matures, this will be a natural evolution. I think it's something that's unstoppable, and it's just going to happen because it makes so much business sense.
We have someone who's built an interface to one of the companies through APIs, one of the companies, insurance companies, internal rating engines, and their question is there interest in a contribution from somebody who's already built something like that? Would that be a question that would be maybe could be directed offline, or do you have a general comment on that, Kim?
We're absolutely interested in talking to technology vendors. If they've already built something, we certainly can have an offline conversation just to explore what the opportunities might be. And again, I just refer back to that email address that's at the bottom of your screen to direct your questions to us, and we will address them.
The whole point about APIs and different approaches that we've had over the years. So you can say you don't want to go into this at the moment, but again, Kim, I think, and maybe Grahame, you might even have a comment, or others, Michael, et cetera, on this. The banks went through the process of building a common hub. The industry has looked at different iterations of common hubs over the years. And has the technology changed now with the whole advent and opening up of APIs and making those visible to the outside world? Is that changed the whole technology dimension to the point where it may very well be superseding the value of a hub? Or does anybody want to comment on that generally, or is this getting into too big a can of worms?
Well, why don't it's Grahame. I'll just make a couple of quick comments in there. I think it does change. It changes the capability of us as an industry to do the data integrations. It was really hard before. When I talk about our being only 5 years removed from blue screens, server-based platform, for us to do that work would have been virtually impossible. We've now moved to Guidewire, and Guidewire does give us a lot more opportunity to do exchange with a variety of different partners and entities. So I would suggest that the new systems let us move at a much quicker pace. The other kind of good news part is that the majority of the large insurance companies in Canada are moving on to Guidewire. And there's a Guidewire working group, an accelerator group as well too. So I would suggest the fact that many of us have moved to a common underlying platform as insurers will make this even easier. Now, I haven't seen that yet, so that'd be my one caution but just intuitively, it would make all the sense in the world that if we're all using largely the same core software platform as insurers, that there should be some capability to use each other's work to do the data exchange more effectively.
Jim, anything on your end?
Yeah, I would add that when you look at technology in general, APIs are the way you accomplish connectivity, not through hubs. That's what we're seeing as a natural evolution. You know, you create your API, whether it's it would be the carrier building or creating the API. You publish the specifications for connection, and then it's incumbent on each vendor to connect to that API. You know, utilizing the specifications provided. As the CSIO standardization of APIs, that will simplify those connections. So through standardized APIs, the specifications would be very similar from insurance company to insurance company, reducing the work required by a vendor to connect to that API.
Okay, thank you. So one of the questions in the back of my mind, given that many of the broker management systems offer and brokers offer self-service capabilities to their customers. Is there any objection, or is there any issue that says an insured, a client, a claimant has the opportunity, if the broker management system or the broker's home built system, whatever the case may happen to be, is offering a self-service function that then could connect through the API to the company and get back something that's presented to the actual insured, online, real-time, self-service, and that could be for any of the inquiry kind of functions, obviously. Is there something I'm missing here that says that that's not likely to happen, or I don't see any technical reasons, but I just wondered if there's anything that anyone has picked up on that.
Kind of sounds like to me you're really talking about kind of the claims API. And so whether it's F&OL, which is a portion of it, and then you have the claims, which would be, I think we've talked about some of that work currently occurring. I'll give you one challenge that I've got with that, and it's something that we're struggling with trying to figure out how to do this in an appropriate fashion, is that at the very worst, we need brokers to be aware of the information at the same time as the customer. So if the customer has access to insurance company claims information through a customer portal, that even if it's a broker customer portal, if the broker isn't fully keeping up to date with the transactions that are going on in the company system or any of the interactions, then you might get into the point where you've got a customer that's way ahead of the broker on understanding the status of a claim. So what we're trying to do is figure out, like, when should we prompt brokers on issues or concerns, or when can we help brokers look like the advocates that the model is designed to make a broker on the claims process. So I think I would just say that's one of the challenges that we're struggling with, is trying to figure out how do we make sure that we don't get a customer too far ahead of the broker in the information that they have access to. On the other side of it, it's not really an issue anymore for us to look at opening up that access. It's about how much, what do we need to show, and what has value, and also how do we describe it in claims adjusters and underwriters are great at insurance industry jargon. How do we convert that into words that a customer can consume in a functional way? Because otherwise, it's too complicated for them to understand. So that'd be the challenges that I see there. But the integration piece is not a challenge.
So from my point of view, if the customer connects to the broker management system through a self-service portal, and the broker management system retrieves information then through the APIs from the insurance company and stores it, and then selectively picks from that the kinds of information they would normally provide back to a self-service and a billing inquiry or a policy inquiry or a claim inquiry, then the broker management system in combination, in tandem, are deciding what it is they want to share with the customer directly. And that would theoretically get away from most of those
good point
jargon issues and so on and so forth. And as you say, obviously the broker would like to know what's going on, and that way they would have the copy of the current information. It could be that no one in the broker's office has looked at it yet, but that's okay too, I would think.
Yeah, this is Gina, and from the broker perspective, that's exactly my take on it as well. Is when we get the information free flowing between insured and broker system, then we can determine how to get that information to the client, and as well as providing it instantly where it makes sense.
Super. Thank you, Gina. I was just going to ask you for that question, so thank you for jumping in there. I think we're actually getting fairly close to the end of our session. Let me just see if there's one more question here that looks good. Where are we here? There was one. Patty, where did you go? Is there any issue with the broker management systems not necessarily having all the data fields that the insurance company needs, or is that part of all the work that's been going on within the industry between the broker management system, CSIO, the standards, and the insurance companies to try and make sure that the data streams, the data capabilities, definitions, et cetera, are all compatible and be willing to do that. Is that a fair assessment? And we could almost go around the group on that one, I would think.
Well, let me jump on that one. I think it's safe to say that BMSs don't have all of the fields required for claims activity, to download that information. But the questioner asked if it would be possible to use PDFs, and I think we'll probably see a phased solution introduced, and initially to provide that type of information will be in the form of a PDF. But the ideal transaction would be to populate the BMS, and so if the fields aren't there, there's nothing to populate. So first phase will likely be PDFs. Perhaps a download in an Excel file may be also possibility, but ultimately we want the fields in the BMS so that they can be populated, and then the broker can do the research or the filtering or the reporting that they need to support their business objectives.
Okay, back to a quick technical question, I think, and that would be the status of the reusable library, the API specifications, et cetera. Again, for you, I think, Kim, when would the API specifications be available for review? Is there any draft documentation available, blah, 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 blah. How does, and I guess the underlying question is, how does someone make contact with the appropriate people to find out how they can participate? And is that back to the email address, or is there some other approach or group to talk to?
Well, there's a little bit more to it. So the standardization of APIs is a CSIO Innotech committee project. And again, CSIO is a standards body, so it's totally appropriate that they take that on and work with primarily the insurers on creating those standards. They would publish it on their website. When it comes to the reusable data services library, if you're a CSIO member, and specifically I'm referring to vendors and insurance companies, they have access to our FNOL RDS right now. It's on the CSIO website. I can provide links if somebody would like to send a request for a link to the dxinfo@ibac.ca. I'd be happy to furnish that link so that they can find it quicker. They certainly don't need the link. If you're familiar with the navigating CSIO's website, you log in and it's under standards, I believe.
Okay, super. Thank you very much, Kim. I think that pretty much gets us to the end of our time for today. So any questions that have come in that we haven't answered, we'll pass those along to Kim and the team at IBAC to see if there's some answers that they can pass back to you directly. If you are an anonymous attendee and your question came in that way, you may not be able to get it. So again, I would suggest you resubmit through to the email address. So effectively, you have the email address there that Kim has provided, and that brings us to the end of our webinar today. Thank you to Peter, Kim, Gina, Michael, and Graham for discussing our DX projects in this example of technology in action. On behalf of those attending, we appreciate your willingness to share.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you also to those who are attending now and to those who watch the recording in future. We will be sending a note in the next day or so with directions to see the recording, should you like to view parts of it again or share it with somebody else. If you have any comments about today's webinar or about how we promoted it, we do try to accurately reflect in our promotional material what the content will be. Or if you have suggestions or requests about future webinars, please send them along. Our next Insurance Canada Technology in Action webinar will be in 2 weeks. With artificial intelligence being such a significant technology in the tech toolkit, AI will be the topic, specifically how it can be used to optimize workflows in underwriting. Discussions will be with Charles Dugas of Element AI, Bayard Genert of McKinsey, and Jean-Francois Raymond, who's the president of Group-Assure. The session will be at 11 on Wednesday, June the 3rd. On that note, have a good rest of the day. To all of you, keep your distance, stay safe, be healthy, and reach out to others in this terrifying COVID-19 pandemic. We all help to plank the curve. Now let's see if we can help avoid any substantial second wave. Thanks to everybody who participated, especially the panelists. Goodbye for now.